All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Washington HIMSS chapter. And on behalf of the board, I wanted to say thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be talking about nurses in the innovation space. So I'm super excited as I have a background in nursing as well. So we have 4 amazing panelists, and I'm sure you'll leave inspired and excited about and more educated on in terms of what nurses can do in this particular healthcare IT space. If you're new and just joining us, feel free to put in the chat where you are joining us from. Many of us are dialing in from Seattle, and today it's a really pretty sunny day, so we're all very excited. I will be recording this session and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, so feel free to share that once we send the link out. If you wanted to learn more about our chapter, I posted in the chat at the top. We might have to scroll up, but I put a link to our chapter site, and looks like I duplicated it. And it's also a way to contact us. I had meant to put our email address, but looks like I just put the website there. So with that, I will go ahead and begin. Let's see. So our agenda for today is I'll give you a quick introduction about our chapter and what HIMSS is all about. And if you're not yet a member, hopefully we'll entice you to join. I'll give a quick intro to Wendy. She's kind of give us the lay of the land in terms of nursing informatics and nurses' impact in the healthcare IT space. Each of the panelists will give a brief bio so you can learn more about them. We'll have a Q&A session. Then also we'll have a live Q&A session so you can post your questions in the chat. And then I'll provide a little bit of chapter updates and what's coming up next. So if you're not familiar with HIMSS, HIMSS stands for Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society. And we're basically a nonprofit organization that spans the world, basically, where we're looking to become the global thought leaders in terms of healthcare and IT. So we bring together different resources and provide our members with events, networking events, educational events. We also have consulting branches and services that we can lend out to our members as well. Again, if you're interested to learn more about HIMSS and our impact, you can go to our website down below, and I've also posted that in the chat. Our vision is to realize the full health potential of every human everywhere, and our mission is to reform the global health ecosystem through the power of information and technology. So if healthcare and IT is something that you're passionate and interested about, feel free to log into our site and learn more about our mission and our vision. Some examples of what HIMSS International provides is on the left side. There's a few initiatives that they support, for example, Acceleration of Health, Alliance for Nursing Informatics. And then on the right side, I kind of mentioned this in the previous slide, we provide services, let's say around digital health transformation. If your organization is interested in doing that, there's services and guidance around that. We are a nonprofit organization, so our chapter relies heavily on sponsors. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors. We're still growing our list of sponsors. So currently SailPoint, but in the past we've had a variety of other ones. If your organization is interested in becoming a sponsor, feel free to reach out to me, or you can apply through our site as well. So I'm going to try something here. Let's see our polls. I wanted to get to know a little bit more about everyone who's joined. So I'm going to set this poll up and hopefully you can see. Let me know if you guys can see a poll with the question. Cool. Looks like there are. Okay. So the question is, do you have a background in nursing? Just curious. And looks like 75% so far have said yes. So that's cool. Let's see, how do I get to my next question? Launch that. The second question is, are you looking to transition into healthcare IT? So perhaps you're a clinician, you're currently providing patient care in some capacity, but you're really interested in healthcare IT, you've heard about informatics, nursing informatics, medical informatics, and all that. Looks like, yeah, the majority of folks are looking into transition into healthcare IT. Cool. All right, I have two more. Are you currently working in the healthcare IT sector? And if so, enter into the chat what your current role is. So my background's in nursing. I have experience in implementing EHRs, but currently I'm a project manager for a hospital here doing IT projects or managing IT projects. So let's see. Looks like Christine's writing clinical informatics. The majority of you are saying, no, you're not in healthcare IT sector. You have a PM for diagnostic cardiology, director for HIS. Cool. All right. And one last question. Cream cheese as a hot dog condiment, yay or nay? And I ask this because I'm not originally from Seattle, but for some reason, hot dogs with cream cheese is an option here. And I didn't grow up with that, so I always thought that was odd, but it tastes good maybe sometimes. I don't know. So looks like majority are saying no. Cool. The other question I had was pineapple on pizza, which for me is a no, but I know a lot of people like that. Oh, haven't heard of that combo before. Yep, you're gonna have to come and visit us, Charlene. I'll take you to one of the hot dog stands that offer that. Cool. All right. So that was your answer. 56 say no. I'm gonna stop sharing that. Okay, close. And then I'll go to our next slide. So I'm excited to present our sponsors, our speakers for today. Usually what I do is I read a little bit of their bios, but I don't want to steal their thunder because I know they'll be presenting themselves. So our first speaker will be Wendy Carroll. She's the Director of Clinical Optimization for Contigo Health and also founder for Nurse Evolution. Wendy, did you want to put a link to your site in the chat if you like? And share that with everyone. And then we have Charlene. She's the Director of Ambulatory Nursing at Stanford Healthcare. And she's also a co-founder and CEO for Fifth Window. Then we have Daniel Navarro. He's a clinical content manager from Amazon Care. And then Nathan Driesman. He's a clinical operations specialist for Virtual Therapeutics. All right, and I think, Charlene, if you have a link to Fifth Window, you can stick that in the chat as well. I'm sure everyone would love to learn more about it. Okay. So maybe we can go into your intro, Wendy, and then we can kind of, everyone give their bios.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Joanna, for the collaboration to put this event together. And it's really exciting to meet our panelists. I'm so excited about our discussion tonight, as I'm very excited and passionate about nurse innovation. So we're here this evening really to explore the traits, paths, and accomplishments of nurses in the health IT innovation community and how they're making a difference in impact in healthcare and really touching lives every day. As we know, healthcare is much different than it was 10 years ago, and certainly 2 years ago, with it evolving daily to meet the needs and demands of patients being treated for acute and chronic illnesses and those seeking care for disease prevention and wellness. And we need to transform healthcare further. So who better than nurses, the largest sector of practicing clinicians, the most prominent users of technology in patient care and operations, and most trusted profession to do this and take the lead. So leading the charge and essential innovation will be highlighted tonight through the stories of 3 nurses who harness and develop new technologies to meet healthcare consumer demands, both required, as we've seen in the last few years, and elective, both locally and nationally. And I'll start off with some evidence that we've come upon in the last several years and why nurses and health IT are so important. Some recent evidence shows that nurses use technology up to 1/3 of their shifts for electronic chart review and documenting and touching other technology devices and software in patient care delivery and administration. Yet we do see nurses currently playing a limited role, excuse me, in the full life cycle development and implementation of health IT technology products and the solutions that go to market for patients and healthcare consumerism. So as the research shows, success in the creation and deployment of effective patient-centered technologies cannot be possible without nurses. Because in truth, nurses who specialize in health IT bring their unique skills, abilities, and knowledge learned in education and clinical practice to transform today's digital health environment and develop the delivery of modern healthcare. And digitized nurses, as I call them, are beginning to develop tech-based processes and products to improve care quality and safety and patient and population and nursing outcomes and experience. And we're now transforming into health tech innovators, as we'll see, establishing businesses, managing medical economics, inventing technology, and amplifying our end users, the patients and clinicians' voices. But this doesn't happen without creative and new ways of thinking and acting. And current national nursing organizations are addressing the needs for nurses to use and develop technology solutions innovatively to solve many thorny clinical practice and workforce issues that we face today. So nurse innovation in our nursing science, in our practice delivery, our research and education is now being solidly recognized and also strongly encouraged. According to the American Nurses Association, nursing scope and standards practice, innovation is defined as creating something new or improving on an existing process, product, or an idea. And innovation is now considered to be a fundamental part of the nursing process. The foundational document also states when nurses are fully empowered to use their knowledge, influence, creativity, and innovative mindsets, a positive future for nursing and healthcare globally will be realized. So with this, we can clearly see that there's really a fresh focus and a synergy of where innovation and nursing are intersecting, because innovation is natural. It's really innate to us as an organic human trait, but it can also be nurtured, learned both formally and informally in many, many ways today, as coming to a webinar like this will do for you. These facts enable nurses to be involved in forward-thinking creation of new technology products, inventions, models, and processes that positively impact acute and chronic point of healthcare delivery, and again, wellness and prevention initiatives. So right now, we're going to see our nursing panelists who will discuss differing perspectives about innovation, from entrepreneurism and business development to big tech consumer product creation and emerging technologies invention. And these rockstar nurses will provide tangible evidence of where nurse innovation and technology meet and are applied and used for the good of people and populations today and into the future to improve healthcare, nursing care delivery, and the nursing workforce and the nursing profession. Thanks, Joanna.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that great intro. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type those in the chat. So we'll start with Charlene. Let's learn more a little bit about you, your nursing background, and kind of give us the spiel on your particular career.
Sure. Thank you so much, Joanna. And my name's Charlene Platon. I'm a registered nurse and family nurse practitioner by background. And so innovation is really near and dear to my heart. And I've been very fortunate to practice innovation in different ways throughout my career. And I'm really excited to share that with you all today. And as Joanna mentioned, I currently work as Director of Ambulatory Nursing at Stanford Healthcare in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And in that work, I'm also a founding member of the Technology Research and Innovation Committee, Steering Committee, which includes various representatives throughout the Stanford enterprise. And as a part of that committee, I really represent ambulatory nursing innovation. So that's something that's been really great great to see. And I also work really closely with our nursing informatics partners who are actually looking to develop more ways to optimize clinical workflows for our ambulatory nurses. And in my past role at Stanford, I also had helped to develop clinical workflows for advanced practice providers, specifically in our electronic medical records. So that has been a great experience. On top of that, I was one of the inaugural Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellows from 2019 to just recently 2022. And so in that fellowship, I was able to focus my innovation project on nursing well-being specifically. And so that work has led to what is now Fifth Window, which is my nurse-led and women-led startup to promote and prioritize nursing well-being. So I'm really excited to share more about that and our mission to really help with nurses and healthcare workers with their wellness. And so that's just my background in a nutshell, and really excited to present alongside my co-panelists today. So thank you so much for having me.
Great, thank you, Charlene. Let's go to Daniel next.
Hello, Charlene. Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. And thank you for having me follow Charlene because that was very impressive background. You'll see my background is a little bit, just a little less storied, or probably a little bit different storied, I guess I should say. Whereas I started off in IT actually as a software developer, developing internal software for a company, working in benefits administration back in the days of the mainframe days, where where we had like big stacks of data, where we were just manipulating it back and forth. Seeing that career, pretty much laid out already in front of me, I decided that I needed to change. And my father was a physician, and my brother was slowly climbing up the ranks of a hospital in a hospital administration. And they kept telling me how important and how fulfilling their work was, whereas mine was just basically someone was receiving benefits. Important, but not as important as direct patient contact and care. So I decided to do a career shift midway through my career and go into nursing, where I graduated from the University of Missouri and quickly moved into the ED department there. And if you've never been to Missouri, there are 3 level 1 trauma centers, and University of Missouri is the one that's in the middle. So we would see all kinds of great and great stuff coming in through the ED there. And I was sad to leave there, but we decided to move back to Chicago, where I started working at the ED center down in Northwestern Hospital. Slowly, I started missing IT work. It's really career-wise is like you just start gathering all these skill stacks, and you want to continue to use them. So I wanted to go back into IT, and now my newly acquired healthcare background, I wanted to get into basically a healthcare IT job at Northwestern Hospital. They accepted me into their Epic team, where I worked on releasing their MyChart through Epic and their patient-wide release and their hospital-wide release, which, as most of you probably are cringing that, a MyChart and all that, and all the great things that come with that with Epic. I slowly worked into the analytics role, because that's where really my big passion is working with data, working with mainframes, working with tables, and working with data to present for analytics, and worked into a BI role over at Northwestern. From there, I was recruited, in Bezos' calls, I got to come running over to Amazon. So I decided to make the shift to go into a technology company that was dabbling in healthcare. At Amazon, I was proud to be a part of the team that launched their first healthcare ladder or healthcare product, which was Comprehend Medical, which uses natural language processing to pull notes from an uncharted or from an undocumented text and make it into more discrete data. And then after that, I moved into Amazon Care, which you do get swag at companies like this. So I was able to move into their care department, which is their virtual health solution. Now I'm currently as a clinical content manager, again, working in with tables and relational tables and databases and whatnot to help deliver content to all patients. Anything that's patient facing and or clinician facing within the portal of our product comes through me and my team, which we are also aligned with the health informatics group of Amazon Care, which does a lot of the innovations and workflows for Athena Health. And so that's basically my path to where I'm at right now.
Awesome. All right. And last but not least, Nathan.
Thanks so much, Joanna. So my name is Nate Driesman, and I'm a clinical operations specialist at Virtual Therapeutics, which is a virtual reality healthcare company here in the Seattle area. I really have a varied background. I started out in allied health and in sports science and kind of moved from there gradually into outpatient and inpatient healthcare as a medical assistant, and then becoming a nursing assistant, so kind of very much ground up. I then chose to pursue my BSN and became an inpatient float nurse, and then eventually, moved out of that onto an actual unit instead of floating around everywhere, and found myself in the solid organ transplant unit. And so got a very broad expertise as an inpatient nurse, but I had questions regarding symptom management, and especially the intersection of how can we manage these things better using technology. And so that led me to go back to school again, and I pursued my doctorate in nursing science and got training as a translational researcher. And basically, I worked for my dissertation to implement virtual reality as a therapeutic for patients in the community. And so I kind of get to continue that work at Virtual Therapeutics, both within healthcare and within the corporate setting. And I also get to kind of wear a lot of different hats at a startup. So I, inform product development and implementation as well. So I'm very much a jack of all trades, if you will. I'm pleased to be here and honored to be amongst the panelists here. So thanks so much for this opportunity.
All right. Are you guys impressed yet? I don't know about you, but I am. I love hearing their backgrounds. It's just amazing on how they've been able to transition and kind of grow in their skills. So hopefully, if we have any students in here, you'll feel inspired. So let's see, what is my next slide? Based on their bios, I thought we'd play a fun little game, and we'll come back to this slide later. But based on their bios, try to pick whose avatar is whose. So again, we have Daniel, Charlene, Wendy, and Nate. Which of these do you think are theirs? And then we'll go back at the end and maybe from their stories and their answers, you'll get some hints. So it looks like we have someone lying on a beach in a sling, and then we have a little cat DJ, and then this little crazy devil person and a wolf. Okay, so keep those in mind as we're going through their questions. So again, the purpose of today is really to get insight on how these folks have been able to use their nursing background and pivot into what may seem like something completely different, right? Which is healthcare IT. So the first question is, and we get this a lot from people who are just starting to transition or students that maybe have just graduated from health informatics schools, is what is your decision-making process when it comes to your career? So in other words, what criteria do you consider when making decisions that impact your career? So who'd like to go first?
I can go first.
Sure.
So when it comes to the decision-making process about my career, I just want to first preface it by saying that I absolutely didn't know at the start of my career where I would be now 10 years later in nursing. And I had also been at the bedside and various inpatient and outpatient opportunities. And I would just say that you don't always have to know what you want to do, and because that could very much change. But what has been a great guiding principle for me is was being able to look at my own values and to see what really aligns with those values when I choose my career. And so for me, what's really important, my personal mission was to find ways to transform healthcare culture and also delivery and care operations at the intersection of compassion, innovation, and technology. So a lot of the especially now, a lot of the career moves that I make, I always try to see how much it aligns with my personal mission. And that really helps to guide where I go. Although I also remain open-minded and see what's out there, because healthcare is a constantly changing landscape. Throughout my various roles, I was 5 of the roles I've done in my career, I was the first or one of the first people to do that role, because there's just so many opportunities now in nursing and in innovation in healthcare. So I would just say to stay open-minded.
Awesome. Who'd like to go next?
I'll go next unless you
Sure.
want. I think when it came to my career, I pretty much chose a lot of like what I felt I want to do, such like as aligned to my values and my goals that I wanted to accomplish in my life too. So I went into IT initially, knowing that was the this is going to give away a little bit of my age, but that was during the Y2K incident, where a lot of the technology businesses were taken off because of they needed the people to go in and work on technologies and learn on these new systems that were innovative back then. But I felt like that wasn't really like passionate for me, what I wanted to do. And like I said in my intro, seeing my father and my brother in the healthcare industry, that guided me towards healthcare. So that was a complete change of what I was doing before. Since becoming a nurse, though, I think what has mainly guided my career at that point has been what can I bring to the table, and then what can I build upon that afterwards. So it's not anything that I'm just going to go in, I know how to do this exactly, and I'm just going to do that. I want to come to a place where I know that I can bring what I have with me, and continue to grow in my career, what I want to do moving forward in my life. So it's not anything that it's not anything that's easy to always continually be learning, but I think that's something that is very important that I've encompassed in my life, that I always want to continue to learn new stuff, whatever it is in technology, a branch of business or whatever, to make sure that I continue to grow myself.
Great. Nate or Wendy?
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. I think that for me, a lot of it resonates with, or I should say, what Charlene said really resonates a lot for me as well. That for me, taking pride in the work that I do, but also having it aligned with my personal values and the things that matter to me. As far as I have a family. I think relationships are something that's very important to me. I think that was one of the things I brought to the table as a nurse, was being able to cultivate relationships and coordinate with a variety of different types of people, as well as different positions in the workplace. And so I think that's something that I've really craved, is that opportunity to be able to coordinate with groups of people and that sort of thing. So as well as doing so in a way that positively impacts the people around me physically in the workplace, but also obviously the end users, our patients and our providers. And so I think when I think through that, it's jobs are up and down. And the other thing is that I think both, as Daniel and Charlene have said, it's you choose one position thinking it might be one way, and it might not be, or it might change over time. And just because you begin one job, it's different, doesn't mean you have to stay there either. And so I think that's something that's important to keep in mind too, is, just like with nursing, there's lots of different units, lots of different hospitals, lots of different cultures and workplaces. And, within industry, it's the same way. So finding the right fit and what, makes you want to be able to wake up and go into work and do your work that day, I think is a really important thing.
Thank you. Wendy?
Hi. I would say when making decisions when it comes to a career, is one thing that I've always done is I've wanted to be people who are like-minded in the same way that I was. Like right now, I'm very passionate about nurse innovation. So if I was to make a move right now, I would definitely, do that search. And that search is, we've already kind of talked about, is limited right now. And as Charlene and Nate said, I think you can create what you want to have, and you can create roles. So I agree with Charlene about that. Just always be mindful of that you can create your own role a lot of the time. And that's what I've always looked for doing as well.
Awesome. If anybody has any comments, please put that in the chat. But these are all great. So some of the common themes that I'm hearing is stay open-minded, be open to learning new things. Maybe take that step forward. You might not necessarily know where it'll end up, because the healthcare landscape and healthcare IT landscape changes all the time. But I remember one time you were saying, Wendy, also, you like to write down your vision pros and cons and things like that. So that's also helpful too in terms of having clarity in terms of your vision, the things that you're looking for. So great. Okay, next question. Fine. Okay. What's the most important risk you took and why? And this could have been a bad or a good type of risk if you had to categorize it. So who'd like to start?
I can go first because I think like I mentioned before, I think the biggest risk that I did was I left a high-paying job in a software development company, working already in a software development company, to go back to school and completely change my career. And if you guys know Illinois nursing salary, to take a significant pay cut, and I did it because I knew that had I stayed in that role, and 15 years later, I'd probably be doing the same thing, and I wouldn't be as fulfilled as a person individually. One of the great things that happened when I went back to school was I had to take prereqs at a local community college in downtown Chicago, and I met my future wife there. So that was like one of the best things that happened, was that I was able to meet new people, and then she became my wife. And then also just go into a role that I knew was much more fulfilling for me in regards to health in moving into healthcare. So that's probably the most riskiest thing that I did. I took a secure job, making good money, doing, I was really good at what I did, advanced up the ranks at the company that I was in, and completely just left because I knew that I wasn't the right role for me.
Cool. So again, staying true to your values and basically your North Star, right? Okay.
Yeah, and making sure that, like, it was satisfying to go in, like what Nate was saying, it's satisfying to go in to work and actually wanting to do the work,
Exactly. Cool. Who'd like to go next?
I could go next. I would just say kind of opposite almost of Daniel's risk. My risk was actually to stay in nursing. So, because I come from a family of nurses, nursing was highly integrated in my life all throughout my childhood, growing up, and it was always something that was kind of passed down as, this is what you're going to do with your life. And so it was since it wasn't really my primary passion, I had wanted to do other things. I had actually wanted to be an engineer first, instead of a nurse. So when I jumped into nursing, as a career choice and in education, it was a really tough road for me. And there was a lot of points where I actually was not sure if I was going to stay as a nurse or be a nurse. And then when I finished my bachelor's degree, it was a huge accomplishment. And then I made the decision to go back to school in graduate school. And that was also a huge risk. There were many times that I wanted to give up, but then I was so glad that I was able to finish, because those opportunities all led to where I am now. And I have no regrets at all in pursuing this journey and pursuing graduate school and being open-minded to those opportunities, because it absolutely turned my life around, and I'm just really glad to be part of it. And that's how I'm here with you all today. So absolutely was glad I stayed in nursing.
Love it. That's a great contrast. How about you, Wendy, since you're like the person below Charlene on my gallery?
Your screen. The biggest risk that I can think of that I took was recently when I left a hospital system, large health system in the area, to go to a startup to work at on-site or near-site workplace wellness clinics. And I'd been in quality improvement, so I'd worked a lot with data analysts. But I was not, data mining and aggregating and doing that kind of work. So I was asked, because I had the title, people knew I did informatics. Somebody came to me and said, "Are you interested in, becoming our data scientist?" And I said, "Sure, that sounds great." And I got into it. I'd never done it before. I had success in it. And then it led me to my next role, which was in predictive analytics and artificial intelligence. So without taking that risk, I would have never have really moved on to that. And then I wouldn't have moved further into innovation. So I'm glad I took that risk.
Awesome. Okay. Any questions so far? Looks like Christine put a comment about taking the risk, especially around the financial piece. Awesome. Okay. So my next slide.
Charlene, you passed Nate.
Oh, Nate didn't go.
Oh, sorry, Nate.
He's not getting off that
No,
easy.
all
Got
good.
it.
I know. I was like,
So sorry.
not
So
the
sorry.
risk. I don't want to talk about risk. I mean, for me, I feel like I'm the newest kid on the block as far as moving into the corporate sector. And like Daniel was saying, like like everyone said, working in direct patient care, you get a lot of benefit, right? You get to put in that time and effort with the patient, and you see the outcome. Like you can leave them better than when you found them, right? And you're a little bit more further away from that when you work in tech or IT, right? So I think that can be hard. I think for me, I definitely laid the groundwork for it early, in the sense that I'd partnered with the company I now work with during my dissertation, and kind of built that relationship for a few years before I transitioned over to working for them. So it's kind of like halfway through that, I was kind of like nudging my partner, saying, hey, give me a job. Hey, give me a job. And I think that's I'd say that was the biggest risk, because it was kind of like, I hope this works, because otherwise I got to find some fellowship or other way to keep going in academia, which is another great route to go. It was just, I realized, mid-pandemic, after being exposed to startups and that sort of thing, that wasn't quite the best fit for me. And so I'd say, like, it's never too soon to start laying that groundwork. And that was like, it's a risk to kind of be like, is this going to work? Is it not? Like, it could stop at any time. But I feel like just like eyes on the horizon, assume the sail, and move forward with confidence. And it was able to work out. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Next question. What is the boldest move you've had to make to get where you are today?
I'll
I'll go
echo
first again
that.
if everybody's shy.
Oh, I was just going
Oh,
to
go
say, I'll
ahead.
echo what I already said. Going from a health system to a startup, that was probably the boldest thing I've done.
Mine's similar. I went from a health system to a small little startup called Amazon as well. But I think that was like one of the boldest things, is like leaving, kind of like what Nate was saying. When I was doing IT in the healthcare system, at least I was able to see nurses, see doctors, see patients in the same facility that I was working in. And then moving into Amazon, you don't have that, and you don't have that anymore. You miss that the why of why you're working in healthcare IT. That there's people out there that are benefiting from your product, but yet I can't go down and see, like, go visit my old nursing friends in an ED or anything like that. That was the boldest move, was picking up, moving out of Chicago, which I've lived in for 15 years, and moving to Seattle, which I had no idea. Well, I had a little bit of idea what it's about, but that's what brought me out here, and I love it out here so far. So I'm glad I took that step.
Okay.
And I could just jump in too. I would say pretty similarly to what Daniel and Wendy had expressed, in terms of kind of leaving the traditional nursing path and then moving into a new arena. My version of that at the start of, like, earlier in my career, was actually leaving the bedside and direct patient care to be in a leadership role. So right after my graduate school program, I was in graduate school to become a family nurse practitioner. And so right after finishing, I had the choice. I had two offers on the table. One was to be in a nurse practitioner residency program. It was like my dream, like it had everything that I wanted in a residency. And then the other path was to become a manager. So a manager for advanced practice, completely different. I didn't have prior experience in that realm, actually, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And it was really in alignment with my goals in the future. So I actually chose the leadership route from the start. Didn't know if I was going to get that job, actually, when I turned down the residency job. So that was a huge risk. But fortunately, I was able to I was able to get the offer for the leadership job. And then that led me to Stanford, and that was an amazing decision. So that was definitely one of the biggest moves that I've had to make. And hopefully I could join my startup, or be in a startup full time in the future.
Yeah, I think for me, similar with your grad school experience, Charlene, was the transition into grad school, and I kind of did it in a really weird way in the sense that I did a PhD program, and usually with that, you're choosing someone to learn from, right? It's very like directive, like they've plowed the way, and you just kind of jump in on some project that they're doing, and that's what works. What I chose to kind of just go into left field and do something that nobody else was doing with like VR and trying to do pain management and fatigue management, and that means I basically was the PI for my study, but I also had to find all the people to work with and make sure they could all like communicate and lead me and teach me skills collectively, right? Instead of just learning from an individual, I had to put together a team of people to teach me stuff. And so I think the biggest one there was in our local area, there's a VR expert who's been around since the invention of VR, basically in the 60s. And I had to march up to his desk or find his office hours, like hunt him down and literally like go in and be like, hi, I'm this PhD student from down in nursing. Would you be on my committee, please? And it worked out. We're still friends and stuff, but which is good, even though I had to like hunt him down. But I think it just goes back to like, what do you want, right? Like at the end of the day, like where do you want to see yourself in 5-10 years, and what are you willing to do to get there? And if it means showing up unexpectedly at somebody's office to be like, hi, sometimes it works.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the benefits of having HIMSS or joining a chapter is that it not only gives you ideas on how to approach different challenges, especially as it comes to your career, but you have the opportunity to network with other people because why reinvent the wheel? If someone else has already gone through this before you, learn from them, right? Always reach out. So that's one of the things I'm always encouraging folks to do is reach out, network through LinkedIn. If you're shy, go through LinkedIn. No one has to know you don't have to talk to them in person, right? You can just leave a message. So it's perfect. Any other comments? All right. So let's go to our next question. How have you built confidence and resiliency over the course of your career? Anybody?
I can start with this one. So I feel like just like as you become a more experienced nurse, you get to a place where you understand like I can manage up and I can communicate with my boss or my unit manager or my whatever, you get to communicate with what you need. Within research similarly. But I gotta be honest, like I definitely have a lot of like imposter syndrome in general. And especially making the transition into tech, it's been really hard. It's been really hard. And so I think that just remembering that, like, you know what, I know how to care for patients. I when I talk about these experiences, like those are things that I know about, and to be able to be confident in that. It's something that I have to continually remind myself. And I think that it's okay to not always feel confident, but also to be able to, like I said, manage up and know like, hey, I've built the skills and the experience to be able to do this job well and to be able to stand in that confidence, I think can be really empowering.
Love that. Daniel?
Yeah, I think what Nate said is like you have to take that risk, and you have to know like remember why you're there. You went through a process to get to where you are, no matter where you are, and where you move on, someone's accepted you as what you know and what you learn. So whenever you are feeling like you don't know, like imposter syndrome, I think imposter syndrome is something that everybody goes through at many points in their career, and or just in life in general. And like how many of us have had the first sip of wine that like I know what I'm doing with that. I'm like, oh yeah, it smells good. But it's like you just have to get through that and understand that you're going to get to the next step and learn and continue to learn and bring what you're bringing to the table and share that information to other people. Working in a place, especially where there's no other healthcare clinicians, you're the voice of the clinician at that point. You're the one that person has to say, like, let me bring my knowledge of what I know. I might not know exactly how to code in Java, or exactly what you guys do for your modeling for your health for AI and whatnot. But I'm going to let you guys know what you need to know for healthcare to get to that next step. And and they're doing the same thing with them. I mean, they're bringing in their knowledge of whatever they're working on, modeling or development or whatnot. So we're all at the same place when we're getting to the common goal. And you just got to remember, you're there for a reason. You have a great vast of knowledge in that you just need to get out and show everybody that you have that.
And I could go next too. I just want to echo Daniel and Nate's sentiments about imposter syndrome. That's something that I've experienced through every stage of my nursing career and continue to do with every step of the way in venturing into new opportunities. But something that has really helped me to build confidence and resiliency over the course of my career was just seeing how much of an impact I was able to make as a nurse in the different ventures and opportunities that I was involved with. So one of the first things that I did when I was a new graduate nurse at the bedside in the inpatient setting, I identified a problem with our discharge and admission process when I was a night shift nurse in the critical care extension unit. And this led me to do a lot of research, and I created a proposal for an nursing admission team. And we called ourselves a SWAT team. So we'd help to support these different transitions of care throughout the inpatient setting. And that was approved. It went through, and I developed this program in 3 months. And so in that time, I was able to orient about 5 nurses who were flow pool nurses, and I was also a flow pool nurse at the time. And we were able to significantly impact the discharge time and the admission time for our patients that came in the setting. And then we also helped improve both the patient experience and the nurses' experience since we were such a busy hospital. And so seeing that impact was really the first milestone for me. And then after that, all these other wins and seeing how innovation and how nurses were able to contribute to that was incredibly uplifting. And it just let me know that I was someone who had an impact. And then I think that just knowing that nurses were innovators and being able to place myself in that mindset helped me a lot, because up until just like 2 years ago, I didn't even call myself an innovator because that wasn't something I associated with nursing, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because nursing's all about innovation. So, and you could totally see from all of our panelists here, that's absolutely true. So just, I think, repositioning our mindset and then just learning from all the things that we've done and seeing the impacts that we can make on a small and broad scale.
I'd say particularly after nursing practice, when I was doing critical care at a local health system, and moving more into trying to find more of a community of nurse informaticists, what really built my confidence, and it was also a risk that I had to learn to take, was networking and really finding a community where I could, like we're having here today with HIMSS, with ANIA, with Sanciel, all these groups, to help us with things like imposter syndrome, to see that you're in a group, in a community, and everyone's having the same experiences as you. And then sharing that information and that knowledge has really given me that resiliency.
Great. So again, some of the things that I heard was really go back to leveraging the strengths and the skills you have. And I love that Charlene had mentioned, do something tangible in terms of, if you see an area for improving a process, let's say, just engaging and probably providing solutions in specific areas will help you feel more confident, because then you can see your skills in action, right? So when I actually posted this question, my thought was, oh, what can I, is there a book I can read, or what type of framework, or meditate? But there are actual things you can do to kind of set you up so that you feel like you're successful. So these are all great inputs. And again, if you have any questions, please post those in the chat. And it looks like our panelists have already posted some of their LinkedIn profiles, so you can feel free to connect with them. And I think this might be our last question.
I also
Oh,
absolutely
yeah,
agree with
go
what you
ahead.
said, Joanna,
Yeah.
about meditation. I can't emphasize
Oh,
that
that's
enough.
right.
And we're trying to promote that a lot. We're in Fifth Window too. But I meditate every day ever since the pandemic started, and it's been a huge game changer. So can't emphasize enough for nurses to prioritize their own self-care and well-being, because I know it tends to be the other way around, prioritizing our patients and others before ourselves. And when I had done that in my career, it really burnt me out. So definitely would say the self-care and looking at how you could support yourself is crucial for resiliency. Sorry to jump in there.
Oh, no, no worries. How about the rest of the panelists? What kind of things do you do to kind of de-stress, meditate, kind of realign yourself and refocus?
I totally agree with you, Charlene. I mean, I have feel like I'm a novice or like a baby meditator, even though that's one of the key products that we we give to people. Through the company I work for. So I've definitely, that's been something I try, and it's hard. It's really hard, but it's something that, you know, you get better at time. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that you don't have to be perfect the first time you do it, or even the second time or third or whatever. It's something you can build on. But I think that it's important to think about also the like the personal stuff, but also the corporate things of the people you're with, your family, your friends, your coworkers, like those things of being able to, you know, have that space for yourself, but also have a community of people that you can lean on and support as well, and have that two-way street with that. Like honestly, wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am today without a really supportive partner, and people I can really rely on. And so, especially over the last couple of years. So, like, yeah, I think that's being able to cultivate a healthy community is very difficult, or can be very difficult at times, but is one of the most rewarding things that's, for me, especially keeps me going, for sure.
Any other comments?
It's funny that we're talking about meditation. As long as it become like a meditation, like a space. But when pre-pandemic, one of the great things about Amazon is that they had these quiet rooms, and I used to, for the first 2 years that I worked at Amazon, someone told me that I should start meditating, and I did. And I don't think you ever get to a point where like you're like, I think I'm doing it correctly. But it makes you feel like it brings awareness to yourself in terms of like what you want out of, you know, like how you want to meditate. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way on how to meditate. Since the pandemic, however, I live in a one-bedroom apartment, and my wife was furloughed, so I didn't really have that quiet space, and my cat's always running around begging for food. So I didn't really have that quiet space. So I kind of got out of that practice. But what I have done lately, though, is getting outside. Being one with out in nature. I live in Ballard, downtown Seattle, so it's hard for me to go to like an actual like quiet space in the woods, but I try to do that on a regular basis. Especially during the pandemic, we got heavily into camping and being in nature. But I at least go outside every day, rain, shine, sun, whatever, and just be outside for at least an hour, walking around, whether or not I'm listening to podcasts or just being by myself with my own thoughts and whatnot. But at least just, you know, that's one thing that I encourage everybody to try to do, especially in the day and age where we're all working from home.
Yes. Any other comments? Mine is really just putting my phone away, so I'm not constantly on it. That's another one. Okay, so our last question for the evening is, what are 2 tips or advice that you have carried with you throughout the years, or what would you have wanted to share with your younger self? So 2 tips.
I could start, or Daniel, do you want to start?
I don't. I was awkward silence, right? Just jumping in. I mentioned one earlier, and it's always be learning. I don't think I can't emphasize enough that you should never be stagnant and just ready to be willing to say, okay, this is it for the rest of my life. This is what I'm going to do. And it doesn't even have to be career wise. You know, learn a new skill, you know, cooking skill, or learn how to meditate or sew or whatever. It's very important that, like, you know, we're all nurses. We all heard the science of like as you grow older, if you don't keep your mind, keep working and keep learning, then it's, your lifespan isn't as long as what it should be. So and for me, it's always, as you can see in my past, I've always like had different career changes, and I'm always looking to see what is in there, what is interesting me right at this moment. And learning has a lot of different aspects. I'm not saying go back to school. No one needs all that student loan debt, especially if you're trying to get into IT. I definitely don't think you should have to go back to school. But there's all kinds of courses that you can take out there, like Coursera or Udemy or anything, or just learning on anything in terms of YouTube University, in terms of getting into some sort of IT. IT is a wide range of stuff. You've heard a lot of us talking about like different aspects of IT, and there's all kinds of different things you can learn. There's actually physical IT, programming, AI, and all kinds of different things that you can tamper into and get into. So that would be one tip. And the other tip is always reinforce the skills that you learn, and try to use that moving forward and going through your career as you advance in your career. Networking is also a good tip too. And networking, just seeing people, talking to people, and network has kind of like a slimy background. It's like, I want to get to know you because you can give me something later on. That's not what networking is. Networking is just saying hello, reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I noticed that I read your article and it was a great piece, or I saw you I heard you on a podcast and this was some great information. I just want to let you know that I am aware of what you're doing and I like what you're doing. So kind of like surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be moving into and getting to know, like into a network, into your space,
Love that.
And I would just add to what Daniel said. I really agree with the tips that Daniel shared, and those are things that I absolutely have utilized throughout my career. To add to what Daniel said, I would say 2 pieces of advice I would give to my younger self. The first would be to be patient, and to be kind to myself, or to be kind to yourself. That was actually something an advisor had told me, when I was in nursing school, and I never forgot it. I think that's really helped me as in terms of every time I had been learning and pursuing new opportunities, because everyone had to start somewhere. And I think that if we are really hard on ourselves at the start, it's really hard to continue on from that. So being patient and being kind to yourself. And then lastly, I would say to always ask questions. In addition to what Daniel mentioned about always learning, always ask questions, because there's always something to learn. Always come from that standpoint or perspective of curiosity. You learn so much more when you ask questions, and there's a lot of things that you can learn just by asking questions alone. And this goes in innovation in so many ways, in entrepreneurship and healthcare IT, when you're talking to providers or patients, and then in leadership too. So highly, highly recommend. But thanks everyone for listening.
Any other tips?
So I think mine have to really do with the words yes and no. So I'm like I like to say yes to things. I like to be overcommitted, overextend myself, and do a lot of different things. And so one thing I wish I had learned to do at a younger age, before I got gray hair and all that, is to just say no, and that's okay. I'd say the flip side of that is also to understand myself, what my reaction is when people tell me no. Because I feel like that's something that's really sucked, right? When you're taking care of a patient and you're like, I think this is the best way to do it. And somebody's like, no. And you're like, well, okay. Or with research, when you're applying for funding and the funding people are like, no. And you're like, well, okay. But it's never just okay, right? It's the pivoting to, well, what do you do next, right? It's that, there's that barrier, that wall, and what are you doing? What are you willing to do? What are you looking to do to get beyond that? And I think that's something I think it's been I've run into a lot of brick walls throughout my career in clinical and research, especially in in industry now. And it's I think it's good to keep in mind that that's okay. The more important thing is, well, what do we do with that next? Or what do I do with that next? And so yeah, I think that's, builds character.
And a thick skin, yes.
Yeah, I think I'd say, which is partially what Daniel and definitely partially what Nate was saying, was reach out to people. Don't be afraid to reach out for support. If you have a question, if you need help with something, as Charlene said, if you're curious about something, even as we've talked about over LinkedIn, over social media, through email, if you have that information, because if there's something you want to do or try that you haven't done before, you're interested in writing, you're interested in moving to another area of practice, reach out to people, because I think you'll be surprised how often people are willing to say yes to you and want to help you and want to kind of take you under their wing, which goes along with, finding a mentor. And then also along the flip side of that for me is be a mentor. Always help to, bring the next legion of nurses or people, share your knowledge and support them and give them what you've learned from other mentors as well.
So let's see, I'm just reading some of the comments. Daniel said he would tell his younger self to buy Amazon and Apple stock. I think we would all have done that. And comments about just being observant on your reactions to when you hear no. I think for me, I feel the same way around not developing a thick skin, but understanding sometimes that saying no is okay, right? Looking out for yourself. And I think there was also mention about, even though there's a no, well, then what are the next steps to take? What's the plan around that? Let's see, what else is it? Kate is saying, Wendy, such great insight, and have seen you practice those words of advice many times yourself. So that's great. Okay, I think that was our last question. Is there any questions from our attendees at all? Don't be shy, just post them. Oh, here. Jen is asking, what future trends of innovation are you seeing in the industry? That's a good one. What future trends?
Especially with where I'm working, the virtual aspect and the non inpatient stuff is basically a lot of it's taken off. How do we get access to these individuals who didn't really have a lot of access to healthcare in the first place, but now that we're going virtual, well, then how do we expand that? How do we bridge that gap? So there's a lot, and I'm sure Nate can talk more into this in terms of what he does as well. There's a lot of like that kind of stuff where like, how do we get to these individuals that don't have access and that need the access, but like virtual wise now. And so while we've opened it up to a lot of people, especially during the times of COVID, where a lot of people can sit at home and make that connection to the provider. A lot of people don't have working internet or even a computer or a smartphone or anything like that, to where they have to go in to, they're at the same situation. We're not helping the people that we should be helping. We're helping the people that probably can also already take time off work and go into a virtual space. So I think that's one of the next things that are coming up, especially in the healthcare IT, where a lot of hospitals aren't being able to keep in demand of the pay that they want to, or that the engineers are demanding, especially since there's a tech, like everybody in the tech space is hiring. So it's a great opportunity for nursing and healthcare providers to go into the health tech space to get to that aspect and be able to provide access to everybody around that need it.
Yes, that's great. Healthcare equity.
Yeah, to that point as well, I think that, two things, from my space is virtual reality, immersive technologies, there's basically wearables, right? We're just utilizing a couple different senses, and we'll try and integrate more into that. And so I think that there's, I think that's great. We're going to obviously see more, smartwatches and other wearables that are going to allow us to, be able to more accurately take vitals and other things, physiologic measures from people remotely, without having to have them come into a physical clinic, right? Mm-hmm. Like what we've already started with COVID is going to continue. And even the regulations that have gone back up about like telehealth and stuff, like I wonder how long that's going to stay up. just because the need is there. With that, I think that, okay, it's great to be able to get this data, but that real world data from a robust standpoint sometimes can be lacking. And for, especially in the research arenas, like we don't know what to do with that.
Mhm.
And so I think there's definitely some big pushes like you see at Verily, which is part of Google. I'm sure at Amazon as well, of like people pushing forward to be able to like, how do you gather and utilize this real world data in pragmatic ways to not just inform clinical trials and FDA development, et cetera, but to actually help take care of people in real tangible ways. At least for in the space I work in, those are two things are very married together as far as the hardware getting that data and then figuring out how we utilize EHRs and other systems to better manage and predict, et cetera, people's healthcare with that. So.
And I would just add to what Daniel and Nate have mentioned, especially with the transition and the increase of virtual opportunities and telehealth opportunities. As someone who's a leader, a nursing leader in ambulatory nursing, absolutely healthcare is moving to the ambulatory space and also the home health space. So there have been a lot of innovations when it comes to wearables and having more autonomy on our patients in terms of being able to utilize these innovations to monitor their own health and well-being, and then translate that with their providers in more of a virtual sense, either through their phones or through other video visits. And then I would also say that there's also more focus on team-based care, just in terms of what each team member can do to increase their autonomy. That's certainly true with nurses. There's a lot more focus on nurses being able to bill and lead a lot of these initiatives. So very interesting to see. But yes, absolutely can attest to ambulatory care, home health, and innovations in that space.
Great. Wendy, did you go?
I didn't, no.
Oh.
One thing that I'm really interested in nursing in itself, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is that there's really formal ways to start learning about nursing and innovation right now. There's college programs that have at university and academia who have special tracks for innovation in nursing. Again, organizations that are doing that. There's a lot of big tech and nursing organization opportunities to be able to, pitch your ideas, the nurse pitch and things like that. A lot of nurses, I think a lot of times don't know that is out there. And Charlene, being a Johnson & Johnson, fellow for innovation, knows this very, very, very well. It's out there. And I think it's what's starting to emerge and what's starting to happen is we're hearing more and more about it. And I just know that's going to bring us and get us to bring us more nurse innovators.
Great. That was a great conversation. And Jen, hopefully that answered your question. So again, some of the top things that we discussed in terms of future trends and innovation were things around data, and we're hoping to have an event around data, health precision care. The other one was approach to healthcare and just care for the patients in general. So it looks like there's going to be more around ambulatory and care teams, and then innovation around the use of, education, right? Like different tracks. Before a long time ago, those weren't available, but now there's a lot of collaboration and opportunities around learning more about nursing and innovation. So for example, I think the hackathon, the nurse hackathon is one, right? And then of course, Charlene's Johnson & Johnson Fellowship is another one. So again, joining HIMSS or any other type of healthcare IT organization really helps you to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there, because if you don't join, then it's hard to find out about these things, right? A question from Christine has come in, and she's asking, is anyone using voice to text for bedside nursing? VRS is readily available for providers. I'm not aware of that practice for the bedside nursing. Thoughts or experience?
Yeah, quick thing is I haven't seen anything either personally, but one thing I've run into recently is, that we have, actually a couple of my colleagues and coworkers, they have very different accents as they're from like Australia or Ireland or New Zealand. And unfortunately, which I didn't realize, speech to text, especially a lot of the software we have available, doesn't work for people with those accents. So there's a lot of barriers right now, not just for nurses at the bedside, but for other people who are speaking the same language, but just with a different accent to be able to access and utilize that type of technology. So I'd say there's a lot of opportunity if you've got great ideas for development there.
And I would just add to what Nate has said. While I haven't seen innovation specifically yet for voice to text for nurses at the bedside and in acute care, I know for ambulatory nurses are beginning to do more and more nurse-led visits, and I could absolutely see nurses using this technology to help them with documentation for their nurse-led visits. And this is something that would be extremely helpful. And as the autonomy increases for nurses, I could really see this being an implemented innovation. And I know that in the ambulatory space too, there are more of those technologies and innovations where there could be someone who's listening or a scribe who's listening and inputting all the information from the nurse, the medical assistant, the physician, or the advanced practice provider during the visit, so that those clinicians don't have to manually type that themselves. But lots of really cool innovations happening in that arena.
Great. We have a question from Martina. When you have a new idea, what process or tools do you use beyond brainstorming on a whiteboard? Maybe Charlene, that's a good question to start with for you in terms of when you were drafting your ideas and kind of brainstorming for Fifth Window. How did you get from it being in your head and then putting that on paper?
Yes, actually, this was a great question. When it comes to Fifth Window, we actually created that through a hackathon. So in May 2020, Nurse Hack for Health had a hackathon that it was sponsored by Johnson & Johnson, Microsoft, and Sanciel, and a lot of these great groups. And so I joined the self-care and resiliency track, and we were winners of that track, and that idea actually led to Fifth Window. So that was a great way to brainstorm on something where we had a very clear idea of what the problem was. And so, in terms of process, I would say human-centered design was a huge piece of that. And that kind of is a nice parallel with hackathons and different events like that. And so that is just one of, there's many different tools. But something that I do whenever I think of an idea, I have like a journal or a document on my phone, and I write down every single idea I think of every time, because sometimes it just comes to you when you're doing something, when your body's resting. It can come to you when you're about to go to sleep. That's for me when I'm the most creative, actually, or when I'm, showering or something. I would write every single idea down, or try to challenge yourself to think of 3 ideas each day. And the consistency can help to engage those creative muscles in your brain. So that's something I would also encourage. That's just a start.
That's great. Anyone else have cool tools that you use?
I don't know about tools, but a process that's very Amazonian is to write a one-pager on it. It's a way to get people. Putting your thoughts on paper is collecting it and making sure that what you're writing down and reading it over and over again is one way to like solidify the idea, make sure that it's right, see if there's any gaps, sharing it with other people who would, before you give it to the larger group, sharing it with other people, making sure that it looks very well. This isn't like a hidden process. There's lots of fellow Amazonians that actually have written blogs and whatnot about how to write one pagers and the process of writing at Amazon. We're very write a document group instead of like PowerPoints and stuff like that. So I think it's a great thing to do in terms of like just writing it down, because it makes you realize like what you're thinking and having thoughts of all the aspects of it instead of just just trying to explain it either through a PowerPoint or through a conversation.
Awesome. Jen says, sounds like an S-bar. I'm sure everyone in here knows what that is, so that's awesome.
I actually almost used Nest Bar in a professional presentation to our company. And they talked me out of it the last minute, but I was like, but it's so clear.
It is.
So I would also, obviously depends on what the idea is. I think for me, I had the opportunity to kind of work with an incubator while I was still in grad school. And so they kind of impressed upon me those like, like the business model canvas and being able to like put together like what's your, customer targets and what are the challenges and your pain points. And so I think if you're thinking about it from a business angle in the sense of like, this is something I think is a great idea and I want to think about next steps, that, looking for some model canvases or other things like that you could put together to kind of help guide your thinking there. I know that is a big stretch for me. And so I'd say the other part of that was finding mentors who can guide you in that process as a part of your networking, especially finding, a safe place to be able to talk through like, hey, does this make sense? Like I see a need for myself in my practice or in this work that I'm doing, but like, could you see other people? Like, have you seen other people having this issue? And even that just means like going out and talking to other nurses or other providers, et cetera, just to discover like because that helps you kind of to pressure test whether or not that idea is actually like something valid or not. And I'm fortunate to be, my wife is actually an ICU nurse. So there's a lot of times where I'll be like, hey, babe, what do you think of this? And she's like, nah, that never worked. So, so I think that, finding safe people to also just bounce your idea off of is also can be really, really helpful.
Perfect. Any other comments? Thanks, Charlene, for posting the human-centered design link. I was about to ask about that. Yeah, if you guys, any of our panelists have any cool resources or sites you want to share, feel free to put that in the chat. There's so much information out there. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out which ones to trust versus not, So, okay, we're going back to this slide. We have a few minutes left. We had asked, what would your avatar be? And so hopefully some of the folks are still on that were from earlier. So who do you think this one is on the beach? Put your ideas in there. Do you think it's Nate or Charlene or Wendy or Daniel? Someone said Charlene, Wendy, Nate.
Oh, we should do a vote.
Oh, yeah, I didn't do a poll. I should have done that. No, it's Nate. Oh, sorry, Daniel. Okay, so let's do the wolf. Who thinks Wendy, Nate, or Charlene or Daniel is a wolf? Looks like Wendy. None. Nate. Okay, let's see. It's Nate. Sherry and Paloma win. Okay, how about the little cat DJ? Paloma says Charlene. Someone said Wendy. Charlene. Charlene. Oh. You guys are right. What gave it away? All right, and of course the last one's Wendy. Cool.
I think we need an explanation on Wendy.
Yeah.
What is it? Is that
Oh.
a purple monkey?
Looks like Satan.
A little devil who's
Yeah.
who's crazy about innovation.
I love it.
We'll leave it at that.
And then Charlene, you want to explain everyone yours?
Sure. And it seems like everyone knows who I am. But I am a crazy cat lady. Yeah. I'm a cat mom, crazy cat lady, and I love music and electronic music. So I've learned I've made a few songs, but we don't have to get into that. Oh, and I love Daniel's cat.
Yeah. Daniel, do you want to talk about why you put this person lounging?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious that we're all getting to a point where we want to stop working, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I innovate that?
Yeah.
No, it's just being on a beach and drinking a cocktail is probably like where I'd rather be all the time. I'm always somewhat chilly. Like it's warm here in Seattle, and I still have my hoodie on. So just getting somewhere where it's a lot warmer, where having a drink, sitting by the ocean was just really what our end goal is, right?
Love that. And then Nate.
When I think of wolves, that's that they run in the pack, and I love working with people, and So yeah, it's just the first thing I thought of.
Love it. Awesome. Cool. All right. So I think our last slide is really getting a chance to get everyone's feedback on our event today. I think there was a little snafu with links to the event. So I think some people might have gone to the wrong place, and that could have been my fault. So if you have time, please fill in the survey. It really helps us to figure out like what content would be best to present, what's relevant to you. So I posted that in the chat. And then just our last slide is about the events that are coming up. So we have several different committees in our chapter, one of them being Student Engagement Committee. That's new for this year. We've really found that a lot of students are seeking a place to network and come for support. So one of the questions that come up a lot is, I want to start a career in healthcare IT. Where do I go? What do I do? What are the steps? What are some tips and tricks to network or find a job or do my resume? So the Student Engagement Committee is really focused on that. And their first event, I believe, it's their second event. That's coming up in August, on August 10th. It's going to be online and they're doing a series. So this particular event is going to be roles and data. So Daniel, I think you'd be good for this one if you're interested.
I actually just registered as an
Awesome.
attendee.
Cool. You might get pulled in. Jen is the chair for that committee, so I think she might reach out.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help out.
Cool. Our first in-person event will be on August 17th, and that's going to be at a local winery. It's going to be super fun. I'm organizing it. You get drink tickets. There's going to be lots of food. We'll have a speaker, but they won't be talking for long because we really want to take this opportunity for everyone to kind of chat, network, meet new friends. And then we also have a few other upcoming events. We don't have the dates, but these are some of the topics that I wanted to share. So data and health equity, we kind of talked about that today. Mental health, especially for our clinicians. So what does that look like? There's focus on, I can't think of the word right now, but a lot of folks are leaving the healthcare space, right, due to issues around the pandemic. So that's one of the topics here. Physician burnout was another one. Career management. So things like how do I network, how do I do my resume, all that good stuff. We have a cybersecurity committee, so they have a few events coming up as well. And then our second in-person event that's going to be happening in October. It's going to be a one-day summit, so keep an eye for details on that. Yes. So thank you again to our panelists so much. The sun's in my face, sorry. I'm really appreciative of all of your time and the effort that you've placed. Everyone is so busy. I understand that. So I'm deeply grateful. And on behalf of the board, we're so excited that you were able to present today. Again, we're recording this, so I will put this up on YouTube and share the link with everyone. In the chat, there's a few folks that posted their LinkedIn profile links. So if you want to connect with them, feel free to do so. I'll leave this up for a little bit, but otherwise, have a great long weekend. In my head, today is Friday, so have a great long weekend. Continue to be safe, and we'll see you at our next event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.